Oklahoma might have just landed their biggest transfer of the offseason. John Williams, the Locked On Sooners host, not the composer, joining me here on the show. And John, Dominic Williams is a huge, literally and metaphorically, addition for this Oklahoma defense. LSU was after him. A bevy of other schools were trying to get him. What was your reaction when Williams ended up picking Oklahoma?
It was incredible. I mean, it was one of those recruitments that had a ton of profile to it. He was being recruited by Texas heavily, LSU, as you mentioned, and Missouri, three schools that Oklahoma will contend with as they go into the SEC for recruits, both regionally and nationally. And Oklahoma had kind of taken a couple, shots across the bow from Missouri over the last year with, Williams Nwaneri choosing the Tigers and then Caden Green leaving Oklahoma in the transfer portal for Missouri. So this was a big win for the Sooners, for Brent Venables, for Todd Bates, especially over Texas, who just had two guys go in the top 40 of the NFL draft, two really high profile defensive tackles, and Oklahoma needed this one. I mean, they had a guy in Dejon Terry who played, 300, 400 snaps for him last year, but he was the only guy coming back that had played significant snaps at defensive tackle for them going into 2024. You like the young depth that you have, but it's just not been proven. It's not experienced. And you didn't really want to go into your first SEC season relying on true freshmen to be impactful players. Now, they can be. They've got the talent to be, but I don't think you felt great about that proposition. So landing Dominic Williams just totally reshapes what you have up front at defensive tackle in particular, because he's a guy that can play nose tackle. He can play a little three tech. He's been productive in 2 years at TCU. He's played a ton of snaps. I mean, he started every single game for the Horned Frogs, including that run to the national title game back in 2022. So this is a dude with a lot of experience. He's going to be able to be impactful in the run game. He has a little bit as a pass rusher, and he's improved statistically, from 2022 to 2023, despite playing fewer games in 2023 for the Horned Frogs. So really, really excited about that, because it just allows them to be a little bit more dynamic up front, which is what they need to be. They have been okay in Brent Venables' first couple of years, but this is just going to help everybody out on the defense, including that really, really good and talented linebacker core. Like a guy like Danny Stutzman is going to love playing behind a guy like Dominic Williams, who's just going to eat up so much space and give Stutzman an opportunity to run free.
I think this is what a typical high-profile transfer looks like in college football nowadays as it pertains to where a guy slots in on the roster. Because you look at what Colorado has done the last couple of years, they're building almost their entire team just on a pure numbers basis through the transfer portal. And we don't know if that's going to work. It's too early to say. They improved from year one, or from 2022 to 2023. We'll see if they make a jump, as I expect them to again in year two. But Williams comes into Oklahoma where, he's the headline guy, right? He's the transfer who, as you said, has got the proven element to his game. Multi-year starter, impact player. You know exactly what you're going to be able to get from him on that defensive line. And then you have the young talent behind him who maybe could start in a pinch, but this is the sort of move I think you make when you're Oklahoma in that spot, when you're trying to say, okay, we're not building for next year. We're trying to make a splash, to make an impact right here, right now. Because if it was all about, going with maybe even Jackson Arnold's timeline of development, you'd say, maybe we don't pony up the extra NIL dollars to get, and I have no idea what the NIL situation is here. I'm just speaking hypothetically, but maybe we don't put the extra effort out. Maybe we don't put, more NIL dollars into a move like this. But to me, getting a guy who is this high profile and who is coveted by numerous other blue blood, big time programs, to me, that sends a message from Brent Venables and company of, we're not trying to just come in and keep our head above water in the SEC. We are trying to do more than that.
Exactly. I think it creates a bigger, or at least it reveals that they have a sense of urgency, that when you have a guy like Danny Stutzman returning for one more year, Billy Bowman returning for one more year, two guys that probably could have gone in the top 100 of the 2024 NFL draft, you want to take advantage of that, and you want to take advantage of the talent that you have. And bringing a Dominic Williams in just shows that, hey, they're ready to go win. They want to go win. They want to go be successful in year one in the SEC. They don't want to kind of bide their time and let Jackson Arnold kind of wade through that first year and then really load up for 2025. No, they think that they've got enough defensive pieces to take another step in that defensive progression, that they could potentially be a top 15, top 10 defense, and a signing like Dominic Williams that adds to it. In addition to a guy like Jermaine Lowell, who spent the last couple of years at Louisville, but previously was at Arizona State. I mean, this was a dude that had 10 tackles for loss and 6.5 sacks as a sophomore a long time ago, back in 2019. Injuries kind of limited him over the last few years, but he was very, very productive early on and had himself on NFL draft radars early in his career. Now, if he can rediscover some of his production from early in his career, then he's got a chance to be an impactful player. So they're really trying to make sure that they don't have any obvious holes. And they've done that through the transfer portal. They've got young guys that are developing that they really, really like, and they're very, very high on. But this Dominic Williams addition, I think, is the big one. It's the defensive tackle addition that they've been really looking to land for several years. And so over the last 6 months since the December early signing period, they added 5-star defensive tackle David Stone. They added 4-star defensive tackle Jaden Jackson. They added Jermaine Lowell. They added Dominic Williams. So they've really just reshaped that defensive tackle group, and they've still got blue chippers behind that, like a Grayson Halton, who continues to ascend and has made splashes all throughout spring and could be that next kind of big time 3-tech for them along the interior.
Is Williams the most impactful transfer Oklahoma has brought in this offseason?
No, Deion Burks is going to be that guy. The Purdue wide receiver. We spoke about him the last time.
Yeah, I like that pick.
I mean, he was just incredibly dynamic at the spring game. 6 catches, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns. He has the chance to be a first rounder. Dane Brugler of The Athletic had him in his first round mock draft for the 2025 NFL draft just last week or so. And so I think that's going to be the biggest impact. But Dominic Williams, he's going to have the biggest impact that you may not see on the stat sheet because of what he does on the defensive interior. It's not always going to record a bunch of sacks or TFLs or even tackles, but it's going to open things up and make things a lot easier for everybody else around him. And so those two guys, I mean, they're going to be significant. You can't underplay the addition of Branson Hickman either, the SMU center that transferred to Oklahoma. That gives them a dude with like 3,400 snaps to his ledger, coming in and taking over at center for what was another experienced guy in Andrew Rame, who is now with the Carolina Panthers. I mean, you had to have some experience at center to go into the SEC, especially as Jackson Arnold is taking over as the starting quarterback in this year, having Branson Hickman. I mean, what they've done in the portal, I mean, they haven't added a bunch of numbers, but the additions that they've made through the transfer portal, I mean, are players that are ascending players, and they're going to fill big time needs for this team.
It's impossible to talk about Oklahoma and the transfer portal right now without discussing America's most beloved college football player, quarterback General Booty, who has that real name and is in the portal right now. He'd heard from Iowa, and I think he just, by lieu of his name, like, let's call a spade, people know who he is and might be interested to know where he's going to go. John, where could he end up? What sort of player is he even?
Well, first, I mean, he's also the son of John David Booty, the former USC Trojan quarterback. So he's got.
I remember that. I'm just connected. Old enough to remember those days.
Yeah, so he's going to have connections across college football because of who his dad was. But this is a guy that was very productive at Tyler Junior College before coming to Oklahoma, and we didn't get to see him play a whole lot. But he's got some tools. He's a capable runner, and he's got the passing capability. Threw for over 3,100 yards and 25 touchdowns at the JUCO level, and was a really important addition when Brent Venables came on. I mean, when Brent Venables came, they had lost Caleb Williams to the transfer portal, Spencer Rattler to the transfer portal. I want to say prior to that, they had lost Chandler Morris as well. And so like the quarterback room completely reshaped. And even though, a guy like General Booty didn't have a ton of profile to him and wasn't maybe the most highly coveted transfer quarterback at the time, it was important because you didn't have a whole lot of depth. You got Dylan Gabriel to come. You got Davis Bevel, who's now at South Carolina, to come. But beyond that, you didn't have great depth at quarterback. Adding a guy like General Booty really helped to kind of help stabilize your depth chart a little bit. So even though we didn't get a chance to see him play, and he was always kind of the biggest mystery. Everybody in Oklahoma Sooner fandom goes back to the 2022 Red River Showdown when Dylan Gabriel was out and Davis Bevel got the start. And this is, no slide against Davis Bevel. He's got some capability, but limited tools wise. And the score is just getting away from Oklahoma, and everybody's wondering, well, why not give General Booty a shot? Some people speculated that he might even get the start that week. It just didn't turn out that way.
What are you going to do? Lose 49-0?
Right. They had nothing to lose.
What could go wrong?
And this is one of the biggest gripes I have, is that Jeff Lebby went into that game with a scared game plan and coached not to lose. And that offense was not good. They tried to run Wildcat with their tight end at quarterback and their running backs. And it was a disaster. And we'll always look back and wonder, what if you would have gone with General Booty? What if you would have done something there? So it's a guy with, that nobody really knows what he could do at the FBS level or at the Power 4 level, but he's got some tools in the toolbox that could be productive for somebody. I mean, he's gotten a look from Iowa, Louisiana Monroe is looking at him, UTSA, Tulsa, which, a lot of people think he'd be a really good fit for Kevin Wilson and his offense there at Tulsa. I think he would be a nice fit with Iowa, a veteran player, somebody who's spent time in a really productive offense, at least learning from Jeff Lebby and Dylan Gabriel, and has some tools that, hey, with an Iowa defense that is among the best in the nation, you don't need a guy like General Booty to go throw for 4,000 yards and 40 combined touchdowns and things like that. No, you just need him to not turn the ball over and make some accurate passes here and there. And I think he's very capable of doing that. Just the limited action that we've seen him in the spring game and some other playing time, I think he's a capable quarterback that, given the right opportunity and an opportunity to play, I think he could surprise a few people.
John Williams, great namesake and a great guest for us here at Locked On College Football. Locked On Sooners, check him out. Thank you, John.
Always a pleasure.
Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.